major issue that we had at the U, overwatering and planted too deep with our trees, our new trees.
Do you remember at Marinda? I mean, we had a lot of trees and we planted a lot of trees, but I don't recall running into any of those planting too deep issues there. Do you? I mean, with any varieties in particular?
No, but we did plant things with cages,
which is a big no-no.
Yeah. And I asked one of the supervisors that was there, why didn't we take the cage off? And he said, well, how would we get it out if we didn't have the cage on it? And I'm like, well, if you would have taken the cage off, maybe we wouldn't be taking it out right now.
Oh my gosh.
But I was just like, and I guess they were more sensitive trees, and they were flowering cherries in the dry stacks. Those were just doomed trees anyway.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they just bad situation. But I think after time, the issues that we were dealing with at Marinda were not necessarily our practices, but it was more of the cultural practices of Marinda. They'd have these big parties. They would compact all the ground. They would tie tents to trees that were there, and they would do it every year for 10, I don't know how long Marinda was at that building.
Yeah, maybe 10 plus. 10
plus years. So doing that year in and year out would stress them a little bit at a time. It hurt we had a big grass field, the compaction. We would put those big old fun blow-up houses or whatever, like those huge ones, a big old summer party, right where at the time of year where it's the most stressed out time for grass, and then we couldn't water it because they had their stuff set up like a couple days in advance.
Yeah.
Driving trucks out on the grass and doing all those things.
So that's a good way to look at human error as far as compaction.
Yeah.
Not watering enough in the most crucial times of day to keep it nice and green and lush. What's another one on human error that typically people
one that happens is mechanical damage. So by not having a border or a tree well, you will try to get as close as you can and you'll clip the tree, and if you go completely around the tree, the cambium layer is just right under the bark, and you can kill trees that way, you can kill shrubs that way. That is probably that's probably one that I don't see a ton of, because I think people are starting to become more aware of it. But the other one is, I mean, we kind of talked about it before, was drift. So spray drift.
Oh yeah.
Like
2,4-D.
Yeah. So that can get on trees, or even like where we were talking about how he was walking from one tree well to the next tree well. I mean, that's a form of drift. I mean, it's not like in the air, but I mean, he's tracking it.
Yeah, the roundup through the lawn and then kills the lawn off in footsteps.
So that's one right there. But drift is huge because of just improper practices, doing it when it's too windy, and it does not take a lot of wind
to relocate or volatilize and then relocate. Yeah,
and that's a huge issue with agriculture because they use so much spray or chemical.
Well, and it's kind of a funky look. I mean, people might show up. The damage might show up in their yard, and it's just like, wow, this is so awkward and unique as far as why my leaves on this one plant right here are twisted and curled up and crunched up, whereas I walk 10 feet over here and this plant is completely fine, or the shrub's completely fine. And so it's a strain, chemicals that drift and move. It's a strange look. But it's a very distinct look. And so human error. That's big problems there.
The one thing that kind of reminded me of it too, though, was of aphids under leaves, how it like it would curl. The aphids underneath would curl the leaf to kind of conceal them, so you wouldn't even see the aphids under there.
Yeah.
And you could maybe mislabel that with aphids, but all you have to do is open up the leaf and you'll see all the aphids.
So, which leads us into number 5.
Number 5, yes.
Biological.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this could range from, any sort of pest, pathogens, fungal, bacterial, and like insects, insects, up to like vertebrates and whatever. So
yeah, all the way up to the large mammals,
yep.
Deer, porcupine are notorious to eating the bark off of pine trees. Actually, any tree, but it seems like I've seen a lot of pine tree damage down near the river bottoms, the riparian areas.
Really?
Yep.
And
cool. So
I'm like, cool. That's
neat. So the biological damage, and then it takes human intervention,
right,
to help be able to protect and put like fences around the trunks. And obviously beaver are going to be categorized in that as well with porcupine and but then you have to ask yourself, hey, we're sharing this planet, we're sharing this area. Is there are there some plants and trees that we can just kind of let go? You have to ask yourself how much that tree is worth.
Right.
Is it a one-of-a-kind tree, or is it just like run-of-the-mill? Yeah, we can do without it anyway, so let's let the animals chew on it. Anyway, yeah.
Well, like a couple of pests that we had at Marinda, we had raccoons, we had deer issues, and we actually had traps to catch raccoons when we would use baits.
What would the raccoons do? I can't remember.
I think they would just dig up stuff, like dig up our pansies and dig up our bulbs.
Yeah, they were after the tulip bulbs, huh?
Or they would come in, maybe even after the fish, because we had a pond and the fish. I don't know exactly what raccoons will eat. I think they'll just eat anything.
Yeah. They were unplanting what we had just freshly planted.
Yeah. And then we had muskrats. We had a muskrat living in our river, which we got that sucker finally, 2 of them.
Yeah.
But it's hard to figure out what it is. For one, you got to figure out what is attacking, and that the smaller it gets, it seems like the harder it is to figure out. So it's like, okay, yeah, deer is pretty easy to figure out if deer are getting in. And raccoons, they have a distinct little hand print that you can see around. We knew we had muskrats forever. We were just going about getting them the wrong way, I think. Because we would see them. We'd see them splash or whatever and cruise on down the river.
Oh, yeah.
Those were pretty
cool little critters, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really liked figuring out how to catch those.
So as you go down smaller from that, I know mice have a tendency, maybe not out in the landscape, but I know
voles.
Oh, voles, yeah, they'll do some van damage for sure. And
van damage, some V damage, some vole damage
in the greenhouse. Just simple little teeny tiny mice.
Yeah, will eat your stuff.
Oh yeah, they'll come in and they'll just sit there and chomp on the plants.
So do you do what Walt Disney does or Disneyland does and release a bunch of cats into the greenhouse at night?
Yeah, we do.
Do you really?
Well, no, we don't.
Oh.
But there is one greenhouse cat, and it keeps the mice out of the head house area. But I mean, we're talking 25 acres of plants, and it's there's just no way. But that's a great idea. I'm sure picking up cat scat would just be a nightmare.
Oh, that's true.
Anyway, but yeah, so identify. Once you get smaller than mice, I mean, we're talking. Grasshoppers do leaf damage. Those little notches on leaves.
Beetles.
Strawberry root weevils will you'll come back to your lilac the next day and you're like, whoa, how come this leaf is now scalloped instead of a nice round entire leaf? Anyway,
well, and see, that's not mortality damage, so that's another kind of that you got to live with. Like if you want that certain kind of variety, it's going to have that, and which is not a big deal. I mean,
no,
it's the ones that you're going to lose your plants. That's the ones we kind of want to focus on.
So we can categorize it. There's the damage vortex, and there's the mortality vortex. We're talking about the mortality vortex.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we don't need to. We can talk
well, I mean, you have to ask yourself on the damage vortex, what's your threshold?
Yes.
You know, is it an extremely important garden? Is it an extremely important shrub, tree, or plant? How important is it? Is it worth a lot of money? Is it worth a lot of? I mean, do you love this thing more than your children? And then go from there. As far as how much you can tolerate.
Yeah. So that's a very personal question. How much damage would you tolerate?
Yeah.
Like I pointed out, we have to my mom. Thank you, Mom. She's the only one that listens.
Yeah, go, Mom.
Hey, Mom. So we have a bunch of maples, and aphids love maples, and she never knew. And I grab a leaf and flip it over and show her, and she was like, "We gotta get rid of it." I'm like, no, it's fine. It's not gonna kill anything. It's not gonna hurt it. It's had it for years.
Yeah.
You know, I've grown up. I was a little kid when that tree was huge. It's still there, and it's like it's fine. No big deal.
And the next thing you know, you've got ladybugs coming in, and lacewings come in, and they just chomp on the aphids, and it's this big life circle of life.
Circle of life on the maple tree. But yeah, I mean, some things you don't need to worry too much about, but certain things you can focus a little bit. You know it has that issue. Like roses, everyone loves roses. It's going to get aphids. There's no question. You're going to have aphids. The only other thing that I've seen that I was just like, what? On rose was it gets viruses and it'll go in through the leaf and it'll make the leaf discolored, and you'll kind of can see where the virus is going from one cell to the next cell in the leaf. And to me, it's like, okay, and it's not going to kill it, or does it kill it eventually?
Well, I know that there's like a disease that can really jack up roses. It's a black stem disease, and really,
but that's
it's just a matter of
fungal. That's probably a fungal disease.
It's fungal, and if you prune at the right time, if you prune your roses at the right time, you can pretty much avoid those issues. That right time being not anywhere near rainstorm, before or after. Clean your pruners on each cut.
Yeah. And see, and I've heard that too, and I've never done it with roses. I've done it. I think I've done it when I've gone from one variety to another. But if I'm sitting there with one variety, I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah. So there is a lot of plants that have to battle fungal issues, powdery mildews, different things like that. But I'm telling you, the genetics of plants these days, it's getting better and better. And they're really, the geneticists and breeders are trying to modify and select plants that don't get powdery mildew or a lot of these other diseases that they used to be susceptible to. So pay attention to your tags and read through. In fact, I know when you go to the nursery and you buy your plant, it has a tag on there, tells you what it is, tells you what kind of sun exposure it needs. on trees, it even shows you how to plant the tree. I mean,
Yeah.
remove this wire basket and plant it to this depth. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's super basic, but just pay attention. I mean, don't go into it thinking that